Assalamu alaikum, my sister, my brother.
A smart woman in Islam understands that knowledge must come before action. She does not rush into life decisions based on emotions, culture, or social pressure. Instead, she seeks guidance from the Quran and the Sunnah before she makes any move. She knows that the Prophet Muhammad said, "Seeking knowledge is an obligation upon every Muslim student, male and female alike." She takes this seriously. Her smartness is not defined by worldly degrees alone, but by how she applies the knowledge of Islam to navigate her life. She doesn't just want to know what's halal and haram, she wants to know why something is beneficial or harmful for her akhirah. She reflects on the verses of the Quran and strives to implement them. When a situation arises, whether it's about marriage, career, friendships, or how to deal with hardship, her first instinct is to ask, "What does Allah want from me in this moment?" Such a woman realizes that true intelligence is linked with taqwa, with consciousness of Allah. She is not impressed by material wealth or popularity, she is impressed by piety, humility and obedience to Allah. She understands that seeking knowledge is a lifelong journey. Just because she wears the hijab or prays 5 times a day, she doesn't think she's reached the peak. Rather, she is constantly improving, learning more about her Deen, deepening her understanding of the Quran, and refining her character. She doesn't make excuses for ignorance. If she doesn't know something, she asks, researches, and listens to scholars who are grounded in authentic knowledge. A smart woman doesn't allow ignorance to become a barrier to her growth. She studies the lives of the righteous women from Islamic history, Khadija, Aisha, Fatima, Maryam, and takes lessons from their examples. She knows that being smart isn't about being loud or argumentative. It's about being wise, thoughtful, and emotionally mature. She knows when to speak and when to stay silent, when to advise and when to leave the matter to Allah. That level of wisdom doesn't come from guesswork or personal opinion. It comes from sound Islamic knowledge. When she studies Islam, she does so with sincerity, not to prove someone wrong or to show off. Her goal is purification of the soul, not the admiration of people. She attends classes, listens to lectures, and reads books with the intention of drawing closer to her Creator. She avoids consuming random information online without verifying its source. She knows the danger of half-knowledge. It can lead to misguidance. So she is careful, choosing scholars and teachers who follow the Quran and Sunnah upon the understanding of the righteous predecessors. In marriage, she doesn't look at surface-level traits. She doesn't say, "He has a good job, he's tall, he's funny," and ignore his deen. She knows that the Prophet advised us to marry based on religion, because that's what lasts. She studies the rights and responsibilities in marriage, not just so she can demand her rights, but so she can fulfill her duties with ihsan. She understands that an Islamic marriage is a partnership based on mercy and mutual respect. That wisdom comes from knowledge, and knowledge brings balance. In raising her children, a smart woman doesn't leave their tarbiyah to the school system or the internet. She takes personal responsibility. She learns how the Prophet dealt with children, how he taught, how he loved, and how he corrected with compassion. She equips herself with the tools of knowledge so she can raise the next generation of Muslims with strength, clarity, and purpose. Even in the face of trials, a woman of knowledge doesn't panic. She recalls the verses about patience, the stories of the prophets, and the wisdom of Allah's timing. She doesn't say, "Why me?" but says, "Kan alhamdulillah ala kulli halat," and all praise is due to Allah in every circumstance. Because she has built her foundation on knowledge, her heart is firm, she doesn't fall apart easily. Her faith holds her up, and her understanding of Allah's names and attributes gives her peace when others are restless. She knows the world is full of noise, opinions, and confusion, but she also knows that when you seek the truth with a sincere heart, Allah will open the doors of wisdom. A smart woman, therefore, doesn't just follow her desires or the trends of society. She is guided by divine light. Her decisions are rooted in ilm. Her strength is not just in how she speaks, but in how deeply she understands her faith. That is true smartness in the sight of Allah. A smart woman in Islam knows that modesty is not just about what she wears. It's a complete way of life. She understands that modesty, or haya, is a core part of her identity as a believer. The Prophet Muhammad said, "Every religion has a distinct characteristic, and the characteristic of Islam is modesty." This means that modesty is not an option or a cultural practice. It is a sign of faith, and a reflection of one's relationship with Allah. A smart woman embraces this truth. She wears her haya like a crown, with dignity and pride, knowing that it protects her, honors her, and raises her status in the sight of Allah. She knows that modesty begins in the heart. It shapes her speech, her behavior, her gaze, and the way she interacts with others. She is careful not to speak in a flirtatious or boastful manner, because she knows that her words have weight. She avoids attention-seeking behavior, not because she lacks confidence, but because she values herself too much to be treated like an object. Her worth is not in how many likes she gets, or how many people praise her beauty. Her worth is rooted in her obedience to Allah. She carries herself with humility, grace, and strength. That is the essence of haya. When it comes to dress, she doesn't compromise. She doesn't ask, how much can I show and still be considered modest? Instead, she asks, what pleases Allah the most? Her clothing is loose, not revealing, and it protects her dignity. She wears the hijab not as a fashion statement, but as a form of worship. Even if others criticize her, even if she is looked down upon or misunderstood, she remains firm. She knows that pleasing Allah is greater than pleasing creation. She remembers the verse where Allah says, "Men tell the believing women to lower their gaze and guard their private parts, and not to show off their adornment." Surah An-Nur 431. These are not just words, they are commands from her Creator, and she takes them seriously. A smart woman also understands that modesty applies in private just as much as in public. She doesn't become two-faced, acting one way outside and another at home. Her haya is consistent. She avoids shameless media, vulgar jokes, and anything that desensitizes her heart to sin. Even when she is alone, she remembers that Allah sees her. This level of consciousness protects her from falling into hidden traps. She knows that true modesty means being shy before Allah, not wanting to displease Him even in the smallest matters. In her relationships, she sets clear boundaries. Whether at work, university, or in the community, she maintains professionalism and respect. She doesn't entertain unnecessary conversations with men, not because she's weak, but because she's wise. She protects her heart and her dignity. She knows that many problems start with a simple message or casual talk that slowly grows into something harmful. So she takes the safer route. She doesn't need validation from others. Her self-worth is rooted in her faith. She also teaches her children, her sisters, and her friends the value of haya, not through harshness but through her own example. She makes modesty something beautiful, not burdensome. She shows that you can be confident, active, and intelligent while still being modest. The two are not opposites. In fact, they go hand in hand. A smart woman knows that modesty enhances her presence. It doesn't diminish it. People respect her not because she shows more skin, but because she carries herself with honor. Even in her worship, she maintains modesty. When she prays, she covers herself completely, standing before her Lord in humility. When she makes dua, she speaks from the heart, with shyness and love. She remembers the words of the Prophet. Modesty brings nothing but goodness. She believes in that. She knows that the more she protects her modesty, the more Allah elevates her. He blesses her with peace, strength, and contentment that the world cannot offer. A smart woman is not ashamed of being modest. She doesn't let the world make her feel backward or restricted. She knows that Islam honors women, and modesty is one of the greatest proofs of that. While others may chase attention, she chooses respect. While others may expose themselves to gain value, she hides her beauty, knowing that her value is already written by Allah. Her modesty is not weakness, it is her power. It is the shield that guards her from harm, the light that keeps her heart pure, and the path that leads her to Jannah. A smart woman in Islam understands the true value of time. She knows that time is one of the greatest blessings from Allah and also one of the most misunderstood and wasted. She reflects on the words of the Prophet Muhammad, who said, "There are two blessings that many people are deceived about, health and free time." She takes this to heart. She does not allow her days to pass aimlessly or filled with distractions. She plans her life with intention and balance, making sure that every moment counts for something, whether it's for her deen, her family, her growth, or her akhirah. She begins her day remembering Allah. She wakes up for Fajr, not just to pray and go back to sleep, but to set the tone for a meaningful day. She knows that the early hours are full of barakah, as the Prophet made dua for it. "O Allah, bless my nation in their early mornings." She uses this time for recitation, reflection, or even organizing her tasks. A smart woman understands that productivity begins with spiritual grounding. If her heart is aligned with Allah, everything else will fall into place. She divides her time wisely. She fulfills her obligations toward her family, her work, her studies, and most importantly, her worship. She doesn't waste hours scrolling on her phone or getting caught up in useless talk. She knows that 1 hour can be the difference between growth and regret. She protects her time the way she protects her modesty, because both are linked to her self-respect. She's not available for every event, every conversation, or every distraction. She chooses her commitments with care. Even in her role as a mother, wife, or daughter, she organizes her duties with ihsan. She doesn't let the responsibilities overwhelm her, nor does she use them as excuses to neglect her personal goals. She schedules moments for learning, moments for self-care, and most importantly, moments for connection with Allah. Her day includes Quran, dhikr, and reflection. She finds her energy and motivation in remembering her purpose, to worship Allah and earn His pleasure. This purpose shapes how she treats time. She also understands that life is short. Every breath she takes brings her closer to the end. She doesn't wait for the perfect time to make changes or get closer to Allah. She acts now. She knows that regret will not benefit her in the grave, so she makes the most of today. Whether it's seeking knowledge, improving her prayer, fixing her character, or giving charity, she does what she can now, because tomorrow is not guaranteed. That's what makes her smart, her ability to prioritize what truly matters. When she rests with intention too. She doesn't feel guilty for taking breaks or enjoying halal recreation, but she makes sure those moments refresh her, not distract her from her goals. She avoids wasting time on shows or entertainment that add no value to her soul. She asks herself, will this bring me closer to Allah or further away? That question becomes her filter for how she spends her time. She also plans for the future. A smart woman doesn't just live day to day without purpose. She sets goals for her dunya and her deen. She thinks about her role in the ummah. She wants to be a woman of impact, a woman whose time on earth leaves a legacy of good. She doesn't envy others or compare her timeline to theirs. She knows that everyone has their own qadr, but she still strives with excellence in whatever path Allah has placed her on. When she makes mistakes and wastes time, she doesn't drown in guilt. She makes sincere tawbah and starts again. She understands that part of being wise is knowing how to return to Allah quickly and how to learn from every lapse. She doesn't let laziness become a habit. She fights it with dua, discipline, and reminders of death and accountability. She remembers that on the Day of Judgment, one of the things we will be asked about is how we spent our time. She sees time as a trust, a gift from Allah that she will one day be questioned about. So she protects it, uses it, and invests it in things that matter. Whether she is raising children, studying, working, or worshipping, she does it with sincerity and excellence. She knows that even the smallest action done with the right intention can carry weight in the sight of Allah. That's the mindset of a truly smart woman. Her minutes are not just minutes, they are seeds for her akhirah. A smart woman in Islam knows that the people she surrounds herself with can either elevate her or pull her away from her values. She understands that companionship is not just about social comfort. It's about influence, accountability, and spiritual growth. The Prophet Muhammad said, "A person is upon the religion of his close friend. So let one of you look at whom he befriends." And these words guide her decisions. She doesn't choose friends based on looks, popularity, or convenience. She chooses them based on deen, character, and sincerity. A smart woman knows that righteous company is a source of strength, especially in a world full of distractions. She seeks out people who remind her of Allah, not just through words, but through their actions. Friends who encourage her to pray on time, who cover their aura, who avoid gossip, and who speak with wisdom and care. She values quality over quantity. Even if she only has 1 or 2 close companions, she knows that it is better than being surrounded by people who weaken her iman. She avoids gatherings where sins are normalized, where backbiting is common, or where the heart becomes distant from Allah. Her time and energy are too precious to waste in environments that poison her soul. When she sits with people, she observes. Do they make her feel closer to her Creator or more attached to the dunya? Are they humble or arrogant? Do they spread good or negativity? These reflections help her make wise decisions. She knows that shaitan often works through bad company, whispering doubt, envy, and distraction into hearts that are unguarded. A smart woman protects herself from that by being intentional with who she allows into her inner circle. She also pays attention to her role in others' lives. She doesn't just expect good company. She tries to emulate good company. She is the friend who gives gentle advice, who covers her sister's faults instead of exposing them, who makes sincere dua for her companions even in their absence. She doesn't compete. She supports. She doesn't envy. She celebrates. Her presence is comforting, not draining. That's because her heart is connected to Allah, and she wants others to feel safe and uplifted around her. She isn't interested in being the loudest or the most admired. She wants to be the one whose friendship has value in this life and the next. When she sees someone going through a spiritual struggle, she doesn't judge or mock. She reaches out with care, knowing that everyone is on a journey. She listens more than she speaks, and gives advice only when it is needed and appropriate. She respects privacy and doesn't spread people's personal matters. A smart woman knows that Allah's help comes to those who help others, so she strives to be the type of friend who brings light, not darkness. She also recognizes when it's time to walk away. Not every friendship lasts, and not every connection is worth keeping. If someone is consistently pulling her away from her deen, through bad habits, negative talk, or disrespect, she steps back respectfully. She doesn't hold on to toxic relationships out of guilt or fear of being alone. She knows that loneliness with dignity is better than companionship without sincerity. She trusts that when she lets go of what displeases Allah, He will replace it with something better. Even online, she is mindful. She knows that her digital connections impact her heart just as much as her physical ones. She doesn't follow influencers or content creators who promote vanity, arrogance, or immorality. She fills her feed with reminders, beneficial knowledge, and positivity, because what she consumes daily shapes her thoughts and eventually her actions. A smart woman is not careless with her attention. She guards it as a trust. She also raises her children, if she's a mother, to choose their friends wisely. She teaches them that companionship is one of the most important decisions they will make. She leads by example, showing them what true friendship looks like, respectful, pure, and centered around Allah. She prays for righteous friends for herself and her family, knowing that good company is a mercy from Allah. In the end, a smart woman understands that her journey to Jannah is not meant to be walked alone. She surrounds herself with people who walk the same path, who remind her to stay firm, who pick her up when she falls, and who want the best for her both in this life and the next. That is the kind of environment she builds and preserves, because she knows that the people you walk with in the dunya may be the same ones who stand with you on the day of judgment, and she wants those companions to be a means of light, not regret. A smart woman in Islam understands the power of emotional intelligence and the deep value of patience. She knows that life is not always smooth and that people will test her, situations will shake her, and her own emotions will sometimes rise like a storm. But instead of reacting impulsively or letting her feelings control her, she chooses self-awareness, self-restraint, and calmness. She learns to master her emotions instead of being a slave to them. This doesn't mean she hides or denies how she feels. It means she handles her emotions with wisdom, just as the Prophet Muhammad did, who was the most emotionally intelligent person to ever walk the earth. She understands that patience, sabr, is not passive. It is not about sitting still and waiting for things to get better. Patience in Islam is strength. It is active, courageous, and powerful. The Prophet said, "Whoever remains patient, Allah will make him patient." Nobody can be given a blessing better and greater than patience. This smart woman carries patience in her words, in her reactions, in her silence, and in her choices. When she is provoked, she pauses before responding. When she is tested, she turns to Allah before turning to people. When she is wronged, she doesn't explode with rage or seek revenge. She reminds herself that Allah is just and that nothing escapes His knowledge. In her daily life, she practices emotional control in her relationships. She knows that marriage, friendships, and family ties are all spaces where emotions can either build or break. She avoids saying things in anger that she'll regret later. She remembers the advice of the Prophet, "Do not get angry, do not get angry, do not get angry." She knows that anger is a fire that can burn bridges, hurt hearts, and lead to deep wounds. So she learns to calm herself, to seek refuge in Allah, and to walk away if needed. That control is not a weakness, it's a mark of intelligence and spiritual strength. She also embraces shukr, or gratitude. as a daily emotional practice. She trains her heart to see the blessings around her, even when times are hard. She doesn't fall into the trap of always focusing on what's missing. She knows that true happiness is not in getting everything she wants, but in being grateful for what she has. Gratitude gives her a sense of peace that money, status, or compliments can never give. When she wakes up, she says Alhamdulillah. When something doesn't go her way, she still says Alhamdulillah. Because she believes that every moment is either a test or a blessing, and both are opportunities to earn reward. When she feels sadness, anxiety, or pressure, she doesn't bottle it up or break down in despair. She turns to prayer. She makes dua. She speaks to Allah with her raw emotions, knowing that He understands what no one else can. She recites Quran and finds comfort in the stories of those before her, like Maryam, peace be upon her, who felt isolated but was honored by Allah, or Prophet Ayub, who suffered greatly but never lost his patience. These examples become her emotional anchors. They remind her that hardship is temporary, but Allah's mercy is forever. She is also emotionally intelligent in how she views others. She doesn't judge people harshly based on what she sees. She tries to understand their circumstances, their struggles, and their journey. She gives people the benefit of the doubt. She knows that a harsh word can break someone, and a kind word can lift someone back to faith. She chooses kindness. She chooses to be soft even when others are hard. That softness is not naivety, it is strength guided by wisdom. A smart woman doesn't deny that she has feelings, she honors them, but she doesn't let them rule her. She filters her emotions through the lens of Iman. She feels deeply, but she acts wisely. When she loves for the sake of Allah. When she dislikes, she still treats people with justice. When she is overwhelmed, she breathes, she prays, and she reminds herself that indeed, with hardship comes ease. She teaches her children emotional strength, not by yelling or suppressing them, but by modeling calmness, forgiveness, and balance. She doesn't let the world define her worth based on how loud, dramatic, or reactive she is. She defines her worth by her ability to stay composed, trust Allah, and face life with grace. In this world of chaos and emotional extremes, a smart woman stands out not because she doesn't feel, but because she feels everything, and still chooses to respond with patience, gratitude, and dignity. That's real power. That's real faith. And that is what keeps her heart steady, her relationship strong, and her path clear in the eyes of her Creator.